Okay, it's 11:50, guys. Shall we start? I hope everybody has resumed back. Hello, hello. Can we please settle down quickly? Taking time into consideration, and we are bound with the agenda today. So, let's welcome our next speaker. She's Tanya Kapoor. She's here to share her lifetime experience around product management and leadership. Let's welcome, please join our hands together for Tanya, guys.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanya Kapoor and I'm currently working as a product manager at InfoEdge, which is the parent company of Naukri.com, Jeevan Sathi, 99 Acres and Shiksha. I am working on the Naukri side and I'm currently working on the review suite. So the product that I manage is Ambition Box, which is an Indian equivalent of Glassdoor, right? So I'll just give you a brief about my journey so far. And I've had a variety of experience in entrepreneurship, marketing, and then product management, right? So I started my career in a startup incubator called Startup Ed, where I was working with very small startups on different problem sets. And it was a role where I was working on so many different things because it was a very early stage startup incubator, and at that time they were pivoting from being a traditional incubator to being a very product-based company where they were trying to productize startup incubation. And that gave me a taste of what it is like to work in startups, what it is like to run a company. And that also helped me identify a very critical gap in the market, which became the bedrock for me to go and start my own company. So the problem that I identified when I was working in that startup incubator was that no matter who the founder is, they don't have every skill set, no matter how smart they are, right? Some people know tech, but they don't know business. Some people know business, they don't know tech. So in that scenario, a founder has only two options. Either they hire for the skill set that they don't have, or they outsource it, right? And outsourcing is a huge problem in our country. So imagine a scenario that you don't know coding. You want to build an app for your product and you approach a service provider and it's a fairly decent ticket amount for building apps and all. You gave half the payment and that person runs away with your money. There's nothing much you can do about it, right? You will not go and fight with them in the courts. That is even more cumbersome. So this sort of a problem existed, and it existed on both the sides. Imagine that you are a service provider and you have delivered the product and the founder is not giving you rest of the money. What will you do in that scenario, right? So it was a problem on both the sides. So I wanted to build a marketplace of digital service providers, which is gonna streamline this entire process and help people, navigate through this very complex, messy process. So I worked on it for around 2 years. Very exciting experience, had a lot of fun, lot of learnings, and we were able to turn it profitable also. But as I reached the 18th, 19th month mark, when we were about to launch our flagship product and we had already done some pre-testing, what I realized was that there were some very critical problems that we are facing even pre-launch of the main product, right? Because we are dealing with service providers. This is a B2B sort of a thing. And what I realized was that it's going to be very critical for me to pivot this product significantly in order for it to work on scale. And that is when I took a very difficult call where I said that I will, pause this project, my dream company, my dream project, and go out there in the corporate world, learn more about products, and then somewhere later in my journey, I will pick up entrepreneurship again. And that is when I went for an MBA, and I did my MBA from Narsi Munji, Mumbai. Post that, I joined InfoEdge as a PM and started working on Naukri and Ambition Box. So that's what the brief of my journey is. So today I'm going to talk about my key learnings from this journey, particularly surrounding decision making and consumer centricity. and how you can probably apply this in your careers. And the way I would want you to look at this session, and maybe even rest of the sessions that you go through today, is that think of it as a rabbit hole that we are introducing you to, right? We have introduced you to a concept. Anything you find interesting, you go and research on your own, because that is when retention happens. Otherwise, anything we talk about today, you will forget after 2 days, right? So my job here is to teach you or introduce you to different directions in which you can possibly think, right? So when it comes to decision making, we'll do a little bit of an activity right now. I'm going to start off with a classic trolley cart problem. I learned this in my, undergrad when I was a debater, and I started debating at a national level, and my seniors taught me about this concept, and I think it applies to the world of business, law, everywhere very beautifully. So I'm going to give you a situation, and I want you guys to tell me as to what you're going to do in that situation, right? So imagine that there is a track, right? There is a trolley going on that track. You are on the driver's seat. You are driving the trolley, and there are 5 people on the track, and you are about to crash into those 5 people. And the brakes are not working. You don't know what to do. You'll crash into those 5 people. But you have an option. You see there is a side track that's going. You can turn the steering wheel and take it to the side track, and there is only one person on that track. So the choice becomes either you can let it go, how it is going, and kill those 5 people, or you can turn the track, turn the trolley, and kill that one person. So how many of you will turn the trolley and kill that one person instead of killing the 5? How many will kill 5? Okay, people are not answering, so I'm assuming that most of you will kill the one person. Yeah. Yeah. What would be the adverse impact?
The part of that route. So it was not, you can say, planned, right? But the route you are already on, it is already planned. So that was not destined, you can say, to kill that one person. But this destiny already came to that path when those people were on that track. So I think you shouldn't be the decision maker to change the destiny of
No, but the
that
thing is, not making a decision is also a decision, right? So the moment you take a call that you're not going to do anything, that is also a decision for sure, right? So no matter how you mold it, ultimately you're taking a decision by not taking a decision. So anybody else who wants to take a go at this problem? Yes, ma'am. So it's a split second choice. This is all the information you have.
But the last thing you were talking about, not taking a decision is actually not an option with me because, I don't have brakes, right? So it will definitely be 5 or 1, but then it will be like, whatever you see at that time, you can take a decision. And
so what is your assumption? Like considering all the information that you have, what would
I will say that I have more visibility on the 5 side. So I know a little bit better, what is the stakes that I have to lose there, but then not on the side wherein it is 1. So maybe I'll take the 1.
So you'll kill the one person and save
I'll
the
take
5.
kill the 1 person because I know the impact of killing
Understood.
the 5.
So this is killing one person and saving the 5 makes sense, okay? Because again, you're trying to minimize loss of life. It's a very simple call. The moment you don't take a decision and you try to go on that 5 wala route and kill those 5 people, that is when things get interesting. Anybody else who would not turn the trolley? Go ahead.
See, my assumption here is that I know where both the tracks are leading, right? So if I am sure that I want to go the first track, right, this is where I want to go, this is taking me where I want to go, I won't hesitate. And further, I mean, the charge would be same if you kill 1 or 5, right?
So you're saying I have to go where I want to go. People dying is not a problem. I am going where I'm going. Okay, so can I assume that most of you will turn the trolley? Is that a fair assumption? I think that's a fair assumption, right? Now I'll give you another scenario. Okay? Same trolley track, right? This time you're not on the driver's seat. There is an overhead bridge, right? You're standing on the top of the bridge and you're looking and you can see that trolley will crash on those 5 people. And you are thinking, I'm an onlooker, I can't do anything about this, right? And then you turn towards the side and you see there is another very big person standing next to you and he's leaning over the bridge. So a very evil thought comes to your mind where you can push that person will fall on the track, it will stop the trolley and those 5 people will be saved. So you're doing the same thing. You are killing 1 person to save 5. So most of you earlier were okay with doing this. In this scenario, how many of you will do it? Anyone? That is not visible to you. Like, this is a call between, again, 1 versus 5. You are an onlooker. You have an option to push that person on the bridge and they will, die obviously, but those 5 people will be saved. So earlier, all of you were okay with killing that 1 person to save the 5. This is the exact same scenario where you are killing 1 person and saving 5. What has changed? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Fair. That's a good one. Right now he's not, but but in that case also, that person who was on the other track was not in danger. He knew that trolley is not going to come there. He's chilling there. I mean, you turn the trolley and kill him. It's the same thing, no? No, I mean that's an information that's not available to you. They're just there. Like, you can't say. Carrie, very corporate we have become. But again, so I think it's very difficult to put a logic to it, right? It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong. We can mold it all we want. It's physical touch. We don't want to be involved in that, this, that. So I remember I did this activity earlier and that person was like, that's turning a steering wheel. This is like pushing somebody. It's very different. And I'm like, imagine there's a trap door and you can turn a wheel and the trap door will open and that person will fall. Then you'll be fine with doing it. And he's like, no. So again, it's a difficult decision to make, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this is that is why decision making is very nuanced. The same logic, the same situation, slight change, and your decision will change, right? And decision making is a core part of what a PM's role is, because you're always making choices in terms of what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. When you don't do something and you do something else, there are consequences. There's always a trade-off. So in this scenario, I'll articulate as to why it doesn't make sense to push that person off the bridge for now. So the thing is that even though in the short term, you would be able to save 5 people by doing that. But what kind of a society are we creating where a person can't peacefully stand on the bridge without the fear of losing their life, right? Which is why, in the long term, such decisions are very catastrophic, and which is why you should never do them, right? And the same thing applies in the world of business, entrepreneurship, and product management, where even though some things in the short term will give you that spurt and that benefit, but in the long run, they can be very, very harmful. So again, I'll give you a few examples. So you would have seen that there are a lot of startups, a lot of airlines who have a lot of hidden costs while checkout, right? Very easy way to boost your revenue very quickly. But think about the long-term impact on what the consumer thinks about your product or service. Also, there are a lot of startups who indulge in very problematic marketing, where the ad says something but the product is completely different. So this is something I've seen in apps particularly a lot. I remember recently I was using App Store, and my some app I was using, and there was an ad that came which talked about how they can translate what an animal is saying via AI or something. Very weird. I was like, but I'm a PM, I'm intrigued. So essentially what is happening is that a dog barks on there. It's written as to what is the sense of what that dog wants to say. And then I open the App Store. I'm very curious. I used to have a dog. One rating, everybody's like very misleading. It's only about pet care. We don't know what they've done in that ad. Now, they would be able to get people to land. Initial first few weeks when they would have run the ad, downloads would have gone really up because it seems like such a fascinating concept. But the long-term impact is very catastrophic. So when it comes to, products, one of my key learnings from my journey is that it is okay to sometimes forego some short-term gains if it leads to very, very adverse long-term impacts. And again, the examples that I'm giving seem very simple right now, and then I obviously will not do that. But when you actually go in the world of product management, there will be scenarios where the call is not that simple, right? It could be something as simple as, you have a free product, and it could be increasing the ad space on your front page, which will have an adverse impact on consumer experience, but boost your revenue. Then it becomes a very difficult call. It's slightly making the experience worse, but increasing our profit, what should we do? So always think in these directions when you're making a call. And coming to how you can approach decision making, particularly when it comes to product, I think it is very important to keep the consumers at the center of it. Now, what I've seen several times is that a lot of PMs focus too much on the solutioning side of things, whereas it is very important to get the problem right. Identify what the exact problem is that you are trying to solve, and then you take a go at it, right? So think of problems as either vitamins or painkillers, right? Vitamins are nice to have. Painkillers are those absolute essential that you need right now. And when you think in that direction, you will understand what to prioritize and what to not prioritize. So again, an example is, think of example that you're building an healthcare app, right? Say building a notification system to remind people to drink water. I think that's a vitamin. Earth will not fall if you don't do that. But building a reminder system to remind people to take their medicine, which they have set, that's a painkiller, right? Similarly, in e-commerce, building a widget for trending products can be a vitamin, but having a feature where they can place one-click reorder is a painkiller, right? So since we are always in a resource crunch, it is very important to prioritize properly. And even though there are a lot of models that are available, when you enter the company, you will understand how they do things. But having this perspective is what is going to really help when you think that, is it really needed or not, right? Another thing, when we talk about consumer centricity, is that one thing I've learned is that it is very, very important to look at our consumers and our users for understanding the problem that they're facing. But the solutioning needs to come from you and your team. You should never look to a consumer for solutioning. So I'll give you an example. So I remember I read this quote by Henry Ford where he said that if I would have asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Right? So the problem was never that the horse is slow. The problem was that people want to get from point A to point B in the fastest, cheapest, and the most convenient way. So he built a car. No consumer in the world at that time would have told him that we need a car. Right? That's the solution that comes from you. Another example of that is that I remember when I was a kid, iPods had recently come in. Tiny, tiny devices, very, neon colors, colored devices. And my dad had got that for me. And I started using it, and it was absolutely terrible, I was facing so much difficulty in using that product. And I remember the biggest problem with that iPod was that it was extremely difficult to upload music to it, right? Because you need to, if you are a Apple user, maybe it will be simpler. But otherwise, you will have to download a software on your laptop, then put music on that, and then transfer it there. Extremely cumbersome. As I grew up and I came across an Apple case study, I could recall, okay, I also faced this. But at that time, that product was not doing well. They did a lot of research and they identified this as one of the biggest problems they were facing at that time. They also had a lot of consumers telling them other things, right? That we want more space to put music. We are not able to upload enough songs. The battery life is too slow. This, that, right? So what did Apple do in that scenario? They didn't make it simpler for people to upload music. They built iTunes, right? They solved all problems in one go. You can have as much variety as you want. There is no need to upload any songs anywhere, and it's an additional revenue stream, right? So again, the problem identification happened with the consumer. The solutioning came from them and their team, right? Which is why it is very, very important to go for understand problems via the consumer, but when it comes to solutioning, be very careful, because consumers will tell you the most random things. We want this feature, we want that feature, this, that. It's B2C side, particularly, it's all fluff. But when it comes to prioritization, look inwards when you're thinking of solutions. But first identify the problem correctly. I'll just take a pause here. Any thoughts, any questions? Anyone so far? Yes, sir.
In terms of deciding what features to improve in a product, how closely are you working, with the sales team? Because when the pre-sales happens, there are certain use cases of the customers discussed. That, we are looking to gain these things from your product, and this is the way we would be using your product. So are you privy to that use case discussions, or maybe the feedback from those use case discussions, so that you can incorporate, if it is that feature is not available right now, you can incorporate that maybe in the future versions? Because selling a complex product involves, we call it proof of concept, POC. So, in a B2B term, in a software company term. So, there's a huge investment involved. So the customer takes their own time. It is tried and tested. Sometimes there are field trials. Sometimes, the customer is using that, and we give them free of cost to use that for some time and then make an investment. So that is the stage where they are making a decision to go for that product or not.
And sometimes that feature is critical to whether the sales will happen or not.
Yes, and sales team, yes, we can do this, we can do that. Sometimes some promises are made, but ultimately when they purchase the product and start using it, and then it's realized that it is not working as intended, or their use case was not understood properly. That happens very rarely, but the teams are pretty. So how a product manager is privy to that, and how is that decision making during that stage, that the use cases are coming from the prospects or the existing customers, and incorporating that? So are you at the work with the CXO level very closely, because ultimately it comes from the top? So that is what
Yeah. So see, the thing is, the process will differ for different products, right? But what usually happens, at least in my organization and the teams that I have worked in, is that sales will have the initial connect with the client where they're discussing all this, that these are the features that are needed and all. But before making that final promise to the consumer, there will be a very detailed discussion that happens with the product team, right? And again, then sometimes PMs connect with the client where they ask, okay, we understand this is the feature requirement, but why do you need it? What is the problem? Can we, yeah, that happens, depends on, again, organization to organization, because in Ambition Box, for example, we have B2B clients, right? And employer branding is how we go about making money, right? And we have just started monetizing that product, right? So those requirements come in, but we often propose our own solution, our own feature. We are like, we are not going to build what you are saying, but we'll build this, which will solve this problem and that problem and this problem as well. So that is how we go about it. So there is some level of discussion that happens with the PM. Yeah.
RFP phase. So we were in RFP phase, and then the customer had a requirement that, so everybody know SSO, single sign-on, that we log in into one system and we automatically gets logged in into all the system. So this particular customer had the requirement that we don't want to use SAML, that is one technology that is there. We want to use OIDC, OpenID Connect, that is different one. And we never had that. There were a lot of customers who were asking, but we never had that. So, and it was like, if you provide this solution, only then we will go ahead with the RFP. Exactly the same point that you were making. So the sales team came to us. We analyzed the requirement. Okay, it makes sense because there are other customers as well who are asking about it. Had it been just one customer and given the ticket size, that is the ARR that we would be getting, we would have said no at that time. But there were 20 other customers, existing ones, who had asked for it. So we said, yes, okay, we can do it. But then there was an existing roadmap that we had. So we said that, okay, we would do it, but we would not commit for the current release. You get onboarded, first of all, because it was a conditional thing. RFP was on, so it was not an assurance that they would get onboarded. So we told that if they get onboarded, then we would take at least an year, and within an year, we would implement this particular feature. So we went ahead with this RFP, we got the customer onboarded, and now the 1 year is getting completed. So we have to honor that. So this way, we actually saved our roadmap as well. We got the customer onboarded as well. Now the situation comes is during implementing. Now when it comes to SSOs, there are two different devices. One is laptop, that is our browser. Second is app. Okay, now these are two very different technologies. So equal amount of effort is needed in implementing both. And given the current roadmap that we have, we found out that we can't do mobile. We can just do browser as in the system. So we went ahead and communicated to the customer that we can only do this thing. Internal discussions happened, everything, because we are in the phase of release, so we can't change what we had planned. There were technical complications as well. So now some point of time, customer comes back and says that it is absolutely essential to have mobile apps because of their particular use case. And if it doesn't happen, then there would be a penalty because that was a government customer and it has been signed for 9 years. So that ARR gets impacted and there were penalties as well. So we thought that, okay, we won't be able to do in the current release, but then in a fixed patch, we would look into fixing that. But then that has to come after discussion with the technical team, and there would be 3 different teams we have to interact with. There is mobile team, which is different. There is platform team, which is different. There is enablement team, which is different.
I can say is at the B2C level, is it this complex or is it easier enough to manage such situations?
No, so on B2C level, the customer is not going to be, we will take overarching sort of feedback from customer. It's not going to be this one-on-one. So this sort of complexity doesn't happen. Other complexities happen when you have to align stakeholders and all on doing something, which is also extremely challenging. But again, the thing is that when you actually go and step into that sort of a domain and that company, right? You will be able to figure out a way to navigate through it, provided you have that intent and that understanding that okay, consumer feedback is very important, this is very critical. Also, one of the biggest problems with consumers is that they say one thing and they do another thing, right? So you can't always rely on what they say they're going to do, because they end up doing something else. So you have to rely on various touch points. It could be data, it could be research, it could be their past behavior. Right? So that is how decision making happens in the gamut of so many things when they're put together, right? So I'll just conclude this and I'll take any other questions offline, right? So again, how many of you are interested in transitioning into product management? Do we have some people here? Okay, so just a few nuggets on that. I have a lot of friends. I have also transitioned into product management. It is getting increasingly difficult to transition into PM roles now, right? I know of people who have tried their best, very intelligent people, and they have failed and they have decided to remain in the domain that they're currently in. So there are two aspects to it. One is getting that interview call and one is cracking that call, right? In my opinion, getting that interview call is the hardest thing these days if you have no prior experience. So my recommendation on that front would be to do your best to somehow get some PM experience on your CV. It could be a personal project that you do. It could be, a freelance project that you do with a startup, or it could be something that you pick up in your own organization. So having some form of PM experience on your CV will become very critical. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to get like a call from there. Second part is the preparation. On my front, I think taking like a structured course these days really helps, because there is so much overload of information and there's so much material that's available on product management that it's very easy to get lost. And before you try for internal movement, applying for jobs and all, spend 6 months learning everything you possibly can, so that when you get that one call of an interview, you are able to convert it. I converted the first call I got, because again, I know thoda isme luck वगैरह भी होता है, but I knew as to how many jobs I had to apply to get that one call, right? So that one call might be the only call you'll ever get. Think of it like that, and be extremely prepared for when you get that call and you have that opportunity to showcase your skill set. So I'll just conclude as to what I'm saying, what my entire journey has been about. One last learning, right, throughout my experience so far, and it might sound a little cliche. The thing is that I've learned that 80-20 rule applies to all aspects of your life, right? What I've realized is that when I have put in that extra 20% effort in my work every day, the result has been exponential. 80% of the result has been because of that extra 20%, because it sets you apart from others, right? And if it is done constantly, it compounds over time, right? You go from being a good PM to a great PM. You go from being a good marketeer to a great marketeer. And when you are great at what you do, people treat you differently. You get the better projects, everybody treats you with respect, and it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle where you get more work, you get better work, everybody appreciates you, you do more work, and it just, goes on that way. So I would just say that if you decide to step into product management or any domain, try and be the best at it, because it takes a lot of effort to be mediocre also, and it has zero returns, right? So be really good at what you do it with a lot of passion, put in that extra 20%, and you will have all the results that you could have ever imagined. And remember that every battle is won twice, first in your head and then in real life. If you can think about doing something, you will be able to do it. And risk-taking is very critical in every stage. You can get anything you want in the world if you can risk falling flat on your face. So that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Happy to take any other questions that were left outside.
Could you please enlighten us on this 80-20 rule?
Yeah, so 80-20. Offline? No, I'll.
Okay. So, a famous saying by Benjamin Franklin: tell me, I forget; teach me, I may remember; but involve me, I learn. So, this is how Tanya has involved us to her journey and made us learn gradually all the important aspects that we have been dealing with: product management and leadership. Yeah. So, a great round of applause for Tanya, and we would like to invite her in the center of the floor to just award her contributions in terms of sharing her journey. So maybe a next quick question, like, who is the, only bachelor in the house? Anyone? Do we have a bachelor in the, really? Okay. Tanish? Can we have you here? And can we invite Tanya, please?